These Creditors in Commerce workshop sessions, hereinafter sessions, are the private exchange of ideas and concepts between the providers and the recipients. The content is not meant as legal advice. The use or attempted use of any idea or procedure discussed in these sessions, as applied to the recipient's own personal transactions, cases, or controversies, or applied to other cases, may or may not result in a favorable outcome or the same outcome as discussed in these sessions. Each transition or transaction, case, or controversy may be different as a result of unique actions or unique statements made by the parties therein, and each different act or statement in any transaction affects or may affect whether any procedure or idea discussed in these sessions is relevant to the recipient's transactions, or that the outcome thereof will be depicted as in these sessions. The discussion of ideas or procedures in these sessions is not exhaustive of the subjects being discussed. Many ideas and concepts that can affect the outcome of any legal or commercial procedure are not discussed in these sessions, and the fact that recipients may not be aware of these issues may have an adverse effect on the outcome of the recipient's procedures. It is the responsibility of the recipients to understand their own transactions and to apply the appropriate and complete concepts necessary for a procedural and substantive remedy thereto. These sessions may be redistributed privately by any recipient to another recipient requesting them, condition upon the fact that this notice is provided therewith. If you have any questions, you may contact Creditors in Commerce by email at harmony@creditorsincommerce.com.
Let's talk a little bit this morning about just some generic here to get you cooking. This morning I was speaking with a couple of the young ladies, and we need to put things in what I term perspective. This whole game being contracts, and I know there's some concern as to being displaced and inconvenienced, etc. This young lady this morning was talking about going through customs, and Homeland Security was copying her documents, including all of her security codes and computer access codes and this and that, and she's saying something, why are you doing that? And they said, are you refusing? Ladies and gentlemen, you have rights you can't imagine. And the one thing that is going to be absolutely to be counted on is that you're going to be lied, cheated, and taken from. And you need to put that in perspective. It is good. It is absolutely good. I have some friends that are absolute low-life, cheating, thieving, no good people in that sense. And I happen to love them and like them very much. Because where would I be without those people that are always trying to skin you, lie to you, cheat you, and steal from you? How boring would life be if everybody was nice and sweet and easygoing? How sharp would you be? You wouldn't be. Now that doesn't sound like it's a lot of fun until you start come into your own and you understand how wonderful that everything is. In Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God. Now, I did a little time in prison, about 8 years and 10 months. Now, is that good or bad? I'm going to tell you from the bottom of my heart what a beautiful experience that was. You can't buy the testimony that comes out of such a thing. Having a warden arrested and removed from office, leaning a warden up, and about 50 other experiences with getting things done on an administrative level, and to see how contracts really work. Now let's go back in thinking a little bit. We have lots of things. Unfortunately, or fortunately for someone like myself, I go to prison for that amount of time. I get out. I've got a couple of 3-year probation sentences that have been put on Gordon Hall. Am I going to do those? Well, in looking at it, I said, I don't see how I can do that in light of wanting to be free and certain other things. And I knew that there was a viable alternative. If everything's as contracts and the fulfillment thereof, then the maxim that I read, as a thing is bound, so it is unbound. I bound myself into supervised release, probation, prison. I can unbind myself. People say, well, how'd you get into this stuff? After being in prison about 1.5 years, I'm reading a book, and along comes a guy who says, would you like to read something good? I says, what do you got? And he goes and gets a book called, or entitled, Cracking the Code, 3rd edition. And that's what I started reading. And from there, I got a vision that things could be different. But I had always been a reader of James Allen and many things like that. You can be what you will to be and all this type of thing. And on top of that, I bought the maxims in law. As a thing is bound, so it is unbound. There's thousands of maxims. He who fails to assert his rights has none. And you find some that move you. And there's lots of poems and things. Some that move me are such as, this is by Theodore Roosevelt. Far better is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy nor suffer much, because they live in the gray twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat. Well, for me, unfortunately or fortunately, that's an internalized concept. Winston Churchill said, if you will not fight for the right when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory will be sure and not so costly, you may come to the moment when you will have to fight, with all the odds against you and only a precarious chance for survival. There may be a worse case. You may have to fight because it is better to perish than to live as slaves. Now, those are some of the things, and we have Patrick Henry and his quotes and his 2-page statement that ends what many people do. And I think about people like Nathan Hale at the Great Rebellion, 1776, a young man matriculated to Harvard or Yale, I forget which one, at 14 years of age, became a school teacher at 17, and at 19 joined the service in defense against Great Britain for his country, and I think it was Connecticut or something at that time. And they caught him spying. And the British Army said to him, this is a 21-year-old captain now, said something to the effect that, look, if you'll give us your word and come over to our side, we'll pay you, you'll be let off. In the alternative, we'll hang you. And they hung him because he said, my only regret is that I have but one life to give for my country. So many of you heard these kind of things. What are we or I being asked when things are going off? And we try to tell you that, I'm telling you, these guards, these government people, they love, in reality, they love to see you do different things. I was in prison on a lot of things. And the last place I was at in San Diego, being what you might term recalcitrant, disobedient, not giving a picture, not giving fingerprints, all sorts of things. Won't work, doing what I want to do, pretty much, within the confines of that. And when I left, about a week before I left, I said to the AW there, the associate warden, I said, I wanted to thank you very, very much for you and for your wonderful professional staff. And I meant every word of it. I really enjoyed those people. They were people. They weren't just guards. I really enjoyed talking to them, challenging them. I loved the animating contest for freedom that went on there. And when I told her that I appreciated greatly their staff, I meant that from the heart. That was a really good staff there. Very professional, very hard-nosed. I loved it. Because who needs things easy? I like a little bit of game. You really got to change your mindset up. Get into the game a little bit here. Not be afraid. Yes, you're going to have some trepidation. And just like one of the young ladies this morning said, you might have to plan your whole day's inconvenience. Of course. Absolutely, of course you may have to plan for that. And we tell my students, plan for an overnight stay sometimes. Up to 3 days. And I had one student say, well, you think that's some badge of honor? I said, absolutely not. But when you talk to Brandon, he'll tell you that his little 2.5-day stay over being 2 felony counts and have it going away was the most invigorating, enlightening experience of his life to that point. To see this stuff really work, to really believe that those judges want you to succeed. Jack and I are coming down on you this and that, and believe it or not, they really want you to. And when I left that place, I told that AW that, and she says, you have made our lives most interesting here. And it was a nice compliment. When I got out of Terminal Island, the prison, the captain there, you hear me say, I'm always saying, what's the good news? And this is about 2 weeks before I left. I says, what's the good news, Captain? Always upbeat. He says, you're leaving. That's a compliment. But you could rest assured, and I told somebody there, that particular compound had 5 wardens over 5 years, because it was a very troubled compound. You had an associate warden that was a straight-up racist. And I'm not talking, this was a Hispanic gal, and she flat hated whites. And she told you that. And so if you go and try and get something resolved that staff was supposed to, she'd say something to the effect, what, you don't understand you're a white guy, you got nothing coming? Hit the road. I mean, just, what's going on here? I thought you said government always does it right. Of course they do. In comes this other warden, just an absolute disciplinarian. I loved this guy. He took and tore into that staff. That AW was gone in no time. That whole staff was in fear. And then he got into the inmates, and he didn't cut them any less slack than he cut those people. That warden did his job. That warden was a straight-up honorable man. Last I heard, he got terminated from TI and kicked upstairs to Washington with a nice pay raise. That's what happens to good, solid people like that man. But my comment when he hit that compound, I saw him just ripping into everybody. I'd written letters to my family, like I did every week, and I said, we've got a new warden, and this guy is a straight-up disciplinarian and is no joke. I said, this is going to be great because we're going to get into it. I could tell that we were going to get into it because there's no room for people like me in that compound. And we had a lot of fun. Because if he wouldn't have been who he was, I wouldn't have got to lean him up. And if he wouldn't have carried it further, he wouldn't have got arrested. And I wouldn't have seen that contract law is so powerful that, in fact, none are above the law. None are above the law. Nobody is. Not even the U.S. And that gives me faith that this government, and then when I apply that they do everything right, it is so clear to me. Now, that doesn't mean when you go into court, when you suffer at the hands of a judge, what seems to be an injustice, it's merely our lack of understanding.
Let me break in for a moment.
Go ahead.
Here. You know, as Gordon's been talking, he's been sharing with you a lot of really great things. Notice there is the discussion of adversarial proceedings underlying what Gordon's talking about, but they're never your enemy. It's ideas and concepts that are the enemy, never the people. And the ideas and concepts really aren't even the enemy. Because if you're looking at what we showed you the map of the republic and the democracy. Then we showed you the map of the commercial world between being on the private side and being on the public side. These worlds are not at war. They're separate worlds. They're like you and your neighbor. If you live in a peaceful neighborhood, you're not at war with your neighbor. His house, he does it his way. Your house, you do it your way. You may have differences, but you can live in peace. But when you get together, you may have a spirited discussion. And if one side or the other gets out of bounds, then contract law is there, if you know what you're doing, to restore the balance and restore the peace. You're not using contract law to go to war against your neighbor. You know, Gordon didn't use contract law to go to war against the warden. He used contract law to say, Warden, you've got your job to do and I respect you. I'm Gordon the inmate. I might be the inmate here, but I've got my rights and my respect which is due to me. And if you don't know how to separate these two and allow people their fences so that if they're not trespassing on you and you're not trespassing on them, we can learn to do our respective positions. Gordon respected these people and what they were doing until they decided to test the limits and see whether or not they could come in and control Gordon's private world. We've shown you in pleadings that there's 4 doors or so to go through. Don't argue with your neighbor. He's got his rights to his beliefs and his patterns. And if he wants to lead his life according to those beliefs and patterns, God bless him as long as he can give me my space to do the same. And so in legal jargon, we are always doing confession and avoidance. That is a form of pleadings which are recognized in any legal system. Does confession say, I'm not going to argue the facts with you? I confess the facts. Confession is acceptance. Avoidance is, here's my conditional acceptance under contract. We would be happy to do it your way if you can consider these options. Am I not entitled to? And how, if we allow me to have my options, how would that not now resolve the impasse between the two of us? And so confession and avoidance is the legal jargon by which we're doing acceptance and return. We will solve your problem. Please solve our problem by giving us the space we deserve. So there may be testing between the two worlds, testing between the republic and the democracy. But nevertheless, even though that testing is there, just to see, can the democracy encroach upon your world of your republic? Will you allow it to do that by your free consent? Second, 14th Amendment, voluntary consent to come into our world. So they will always test that. And even as they're testing you by contract, you are in return contesting them. But if I allow your world of democracy to come into my republic, would you compensate me in this respect for doing that? And so Gordon tends to talk as though we are in opposition to these people and in opposition to this world. He started out by also saying there was a lady that was kind of testing or challenging Homeland Security at an airport. Whose air traffic control system is this? Is it theirs or is it yours? What is their job in testing you? You see, they're not extracting your mind. They're not even telling you to change your concepts and ideals. But they do want to control your environment for what purpose? To make flight safe for their business, their employees, their capital investments, and you, the passenger. Why aren't we helping them? Oh, sure, we don't want to take our shoes off and whatever. And maybe they're going way beyond reason, logic, and common sense. But what did Brandon tell you on Saturday morning? There's this comfortable box you live in, and part of that comfortable box is, I got my rights. I got my dignity. I don't want to have to do this. They're treating me like a child. Aren't they just in part really testing you to see who it is? Who is it that would harm that system? Terrorists? People that have these mental ideas and concept that they have to go to some form of warfare against somebody whose ideals they don't like. And so in their world, the only way to resolve peace in their world is by going to war and killing people that don't believe in peace under their style. Is that ultimate freedom? To prevent people from going through a mental process of growth? Didn't we talk about the concept that people start out as ostriches and don't want to get involved? And then they come up with this mental concept, oh, everything's screwed up, I've got to fix it. And so they go out trying to fix everybody else except themselves. Haven't we shown you that in reality the biggest problems the world has is because everybody's trying to fix everyone else? And Scripture says take the beam out of your own eye before you try to take the splinter out of your neighbor's eye. The problem by the time you get through this rebellion stage of fixing the world is you go to the third stage, not how can I fix you, how can I help you? Because when it's help, you are going out. When it's how can I fix you, it's what I want you to do for me. We got to get beyond me. In our chart, box 1 is I. Box 2 is myself. Box 6B is me. Don't you get tired of your children going, me, me, me? Mom, what are you going to do for me? Dad, I need some more for me. Don't you want to get your children to the point where, why don't you fix it yourself? It's the myself that you want your children to grow into. Myself is box 2. Who is box 2? He's the creditor that fixes everybody else's problems. Don't you like the kid that says, Mommy, I cleaned up my room and you didn't have to ask me? That's the myself child. That's the one that you're proud that you've raised. See, everybody in this second category, oh, there's a problem with the world, I've got to fix you. It's all about me. You're going to change your life to agree with me. And when you agree with me because I'm so perfect, then the whole world is going to be at peace. But you're just an extension of the me child, dictating to the world what you believe is the right way to go. Peace goes to the myself, where you're out there to assist everyone else. Homeland Security, like every other government agency, is part of the public trust. What is the public trust here for? To provide the best of all possible benefits in the public trust system to the beneficiaries. They're here to help you. They're from the government. By the time you're in stage 1 and you've got your head in the sand, you've heard that so many times. But having your head in the sand, it's like, yeah, right, they're here from the government to help me. Okay. But you're not really opposed to them because you're so scared, you're so indifferent, fill in the blank. By the time you get into category 2, when you hear the phrase, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help you, those people are going, well, the way me thinks, The government isn't doing it me's way. And so the government is not here to help me. That's a lie. And so the people in that second category are in rebellion in various levels and degrees to this concept of the public trust in government. And quite frankly, many of your friends that may be patriots won't come to a CIC because, oh, those people, they're part of the problem. They're in agreement with the government. They're not fighting the problem. They're creating more of the problem type aspect. Whereas by the time you get into category 3, can you truly see that by the map of the republic and the democracy, the only reason that the government doesn't openly come out and join you is because we're constrained in the United States by that original 13th article and amendment which said we will not allow the government to come into the private world. Now maybe that's really great. Maybe that is partially the reason why you have some problems with the government, because look, everybody in government, do they want to live in the circumstances of a democracy? Or would they rather be living in the liberty, freedom, and individual responsibility of the republic? You can't tell me that a Supreme Court judge doesn't understand everything we've been talking here today. You can't believe in a heartbeat that these Supreme Court judges are not pulled in their duty between keeping the balance between keeping the republic and the rights of the individual alive for those people that understand responsibility, and yet at the same time knowing that the democracy is a fact de facto and isn't necessary. For what reason? Because we have children out here. We have 80-year-old children, 60-year-old children. Nobody that understands responsibility. For in a heartbeat, if the military, either American or foreign, is brought into the inner cities in America, which we pray isn't necessary, in a heartbeat, do you hope that military isn't there if it's really needed? Because the worst thing that can happen is total anarchy. Good people are going to suffer very quickly. People that understand the republic and are responsible are going to be harmed by idiots that are in rebellion because they think their rebellion is productive. They think it's in harmony with the goals and the aspects of America. You know, people have this concept, why do bad things happen to good people? Bad things don't happen to good people. Bad and good is the state of your mind. We go back into the Old Testament times when Israel, many times God sent them into a captivity. And you could ask the question, why would a loving God send his people into a captivity to a foreign nation or a foreign entity? Whenever God's people disobeyed his laws, it was treated as a commercial debt. It was created as God's people are debtors. God is the creditor. We know that when there is a commercial model such as this, that the creditor is the head, the debtor is the tail, and we know that they're at warfare against each other. The debtors, not being in honor, do not have a close relationship with the creditor. So sad that God's people cannot be directly associated with him. So why does God cause his people or their nation to go into a captivity? It's very simple. Because God would have to deal with us as the debtors if that relationship continued. So what God does, as any good creditor that's having trouble getting his debtor to pay the debt, what does the creditor do when they harass the public trust enough that the public trust does not assist the creditor in paying the debt? What does the creditor do? He passes the debt on to a third party. He sells the debt. God sells the debt by putting his people in a captivity to a foreign entity, moving the debt from his people to whoever it is that has captured or taken over the nation or the body of his people. Is anyone that is a slave or in captivity bound by law to pay his debts? No. Anybody in a captivity own any assets by which the debts can be collected? No. Who are the assets owned by? His master, whoever God sold the account to. So if the people of America have not followed God's laws, if they're in debt now to this God of the people of America, if the people of America are so-called Christian, then the Christian God is very unpleased with the actions of the Christians in America. And so he sold the debt. So what did he do? He didn't cause some foreign nation to come in and overrun them. He caused a commercial system to come in and overrun them. And so now the one world government, we'll just call them the ones that have assumed the liability over people in America by that commercial model. They've taken away the Christians' lawful money. They've taken away their capacity to have titles to land. And they've basically made them slaves. Now they've passed the health care bill. What the hell has that got to do with it? Because in the 1930s, the government got the equitable use of all of our estate. Remember Block 3? The beneficiary was the alien property custodian. Was he a trustee or a beneficiary? Beneficiary. So the national government was using all of the equity of the people of America. And you were induced into that knowingly or unknowingly by voluntarily registering your estate through a birth certificate, which is an artifice, created a trust into which was dumped your whole estate that you would acquire by your activities for your whole life. So you've never owned anything, in spite of the fact that the illusion made it appear as though you did. So they took your equity. What did the health care bill do? Didn't the health care bill make the national government responsible for the welfare and upkeep of the body? Isn't the body part of the collateral in the trust? Isn't it a material thing? Where did the body come from? Dust of the ground? Is the body stationary or movable? Movable. It comes from the dust of the ground like every other agricultural product. The body is part of the ag system of America. It's a movable item, just like cattle, just like anything else raised on a farm. Everything that came in the 1930s, the bank holiday and everything else is based on what? Control of agriculture because agriculture is the food source to keep the body alive. If the body dies, there's no commercial energy. If there's no commercial energy, all commerce stops. Everything under the system of control starts with ag. And even as we have to keep the cattle healthy, we got to keep the body healthy. Now that our agents in the corporate government have authorized the government to keep your body healthy, they literally pay for your health. The one that pays for your health is the creditor. The one that receives the benefits is a debtor. What did the national government just do? Get legal title over your body. They had equitable title over the produce of your body. Now they've got legal title over your body. What did we say Saturday? Did we not say that if an entity, the same entity, has both legal and equitable title over the same piece of property, what is that? Complete ownership and control. Everybody in America is a total slave. You have no rights. You are property belonging to the corporation. You have no rights to resist. You have no rights to oppose. Did Nancy Pelosi say, let's just first pass the bill, and once we pass the bill, then we can discuss what is in it? Has the discussion begun outside of this room yet? Not really. Where the hell is everybody dead asleep? They were dead asleep in 30s. They're really dead asleep in the 2010s. What is included in the health care bill? Everything. Gun control, taking the chip, anything they want to do. Didn't Obama, since before he was elected, tell us that the health care bill was priority? Why was the health care bill priority? Why did it not make a difference what the facts and the content and the benefits of the health care bill were? Because the health care bill is not there for your benefits. Remember, everything they pass and they title it health care is mirror image opposite death care. Women's rights, women's responsibilities. It is never what they tell you, because they're passing it in the military system. What does the military system do? Lie, cheat, steal. Why? Because under the military system, the military is there to protect everyone from disaster, under the assumption that everyone that's being protected is not responsible, it's not capable of protecting itself. And if we were truthful, these irresponsible idiots would oppose us, and we're here as Plan B, the last plan to save their ass. Now let me ask you a question. If the health care bill was mandatory, now remember, who voted for the health care bill? What part of Congress? Well, they had both Senate and the House. Democrats. Democrats represent what? The democracy in which the health care bill was necessary. Who do the Republicans represent? The Republic. If you're in the republic, do you need a health care bill? No, because how are you going to take care of your health? Set off with your asset account. Take care of any health care bill in any hospital. Did the Republicans oppose the Democrats passing the health care bill? No, they allowed it to happen because it was absolutely necessary for the democracy. There is the appearance of adversarial proceedings. But when everything came down to it, you had McCain. When McCain was running for the president here last time, was McCain running on a platform of change, just like Obama? Absolutely. Everyone was running on change. They just didn't tell you what their idea of change was. Did you see any actions from either of the two Bush Republican presidents that opposed any of the strategic measures of the one world government? No. Have you seen any measures of the Democratic presidents, Clinton or Obama, that basically oppose the one world government measures? No. So what is this change that's coming about? Well, the change was necessitated by the cycles, the commercial times, and the fact that America came out of its last cycle of debtorship in the year 2000. And because the cycle has changed, and America came out of being a debtor for 3 periods of 70 years, the world had to go into a cycle of allowing America to be released from its debt. But was it released or was it discharged? Those are two different words. If you discharge, you take away a charge, which is a commercial stress. Everything is zeroed. If you're released, isn't a lease a commercial contract for performance? So under a release, you're still bound to some duties, but there might be an alteration in that contract pursuant to the changing lease. So the democracy is still a debtor. It did not come out of the 210-year bondage from 1789 to 1999. It came out released. The republic came out discharged, which has given many of us an opportunity moving to the republic through the discharge to give us a window of opportunity to access our trust benefits. But those who have remained voluntarily in the democracy, that are not going after their trust benefits in the republic, are merely going to be released back into some kind of duties and obligations. Now, what kind of benefit is coming out of the health care bill? Because doesn't it sound all negative? Doesn't it sound like they have complete control over you? What's going to happen when the law enforcement stops you to ask you questions, to basically decide whether you're or not you're an enemy of America or whether you're a friend? whether we're going to charge you and put handcuffs on you, or whether we're going to talk with you and release you or discharge you. You see, they've given the military, they've given the law enforcement more latitude now in dealing with you, because under the presumptions of the health care bill, you all are Toby the slave to them, and Toby the slave has to answer their questions. But you see, that may be the presumption that you're in the democracy. You better quickly start learning how to respond to these agents in the democracy, to show them that you are in harmony with them, and a next-door neighbor respecting them by dwelling in the republic, and you're one of the discharged, not one of the released. But their assumption going in, because in Admiralty Maritime, it inverts all of the maxims that are in Republic. In the Republic, the maxim is, you are innocent until you are proven guilty. Not so in the democracy. You are guilty unless you can prove yourself innocent. So what you need to understand is you need to rebut an assumption with some form of evidence. You don't have to go all the way. You just have to rebut the assumption. Once you rebut the assumption, then what does the law enforcement officer have to do? Gather evidence to rebut your prima facie assumption against his. So now you're back to common law, because now you're innocent until they prove you guilty. But you got to throw in that extra step. You've got to rebut that presumption in some discussion, some words, some action, or some third-party evidence. When you come in and you're arraigned in the court, what is the judge seeing? Guilty. Commercially, what's he seeing? An account that's not balanced. If there's already an account there that is not balanced, you're guilty because you haven't paid that count. So on the criminal side, you're presumed guilty, even though they will never admit that. On the commercial side, there's an unbalanced account which proves you have not been discharged because the account is there. So they got two witnesses against you, one in the proceedings and one in commerce. And if you're going there saying, I am innocent, where's your action, your conduct, or your third-party evidence that rebuts the assumption otherwise? And now with the health care bill, you ain't seen it yet implemented. When is the health care bill basically going to be implemented? 20 who? After 2012. Why after 2012? Because 2012 is the end of your window of opportunity to switch allegiance from democracy to the republic. When a foreign military comes in and wins a war and captures a territory, in the discussions of the peace, the civilian population is caught up in the aftermath of the conduct of that war. And as a result of one side winning and another side losing, the civilian population has a 3-year period of time to do what? Choose to remain in the land under whatever government has captured them under their rules, or they may elect to voluntarily leave that land and go somewhere else where they would rather choose to live. There has been a capture of America post the discharge in the year 2000. You are being asked now as the civilian population to choose to live under the capture, the democracy, or to remove yourself to the republic. The choice is there in a 3-year period. After the 3-year period, if you choose to do nothing, you have actually chosen to do something. What have you chosen to do? Remain in the land that has been captured under the new force. You will remain in the democracy. And your option to move to the republic will be foreclosed. The windows to the DTC will be shut. Your ability to capture your estate will be past history. Do you have to leave the geographic territory of America? No, because America has both the republic and the democracy as basically two separate but different countries, and two separate but different law forms, and two separate but different privileges and benefits, duties and immunities with respect to the commercial makeup of each one. Why did they pass the health care bill? How is that protecting which one of the two? Democracy, because you don't need that protection in the republic. How is the government, we're here to help you, helping the people that remain and choose to stay in the democracy? Very simple. What is the current problem in the democracy? Debt. Debt and death are the same thing. There's two forms of death. There is the physical death, Genesis. On the day you sin, on the day you get into debt, you will surely die. Adam and Eve got into sin. They're going to test that theory. Did they die on that day? How many people say they did? How many people say they didn't? There's two forms of death. They did not physically die. That would be the law in the republic, the common law, the law of the land. What kind of death do you have in the democracy? Civil death. You have no rights. You have no titles. On the day Adam and Eve sinned, they were put outside the jurisdiction of the Garden of Eden. The world outside the Garden of Eden carried with it burdens that were not carried inside the Garden of Eden. Inside the Garden of Eden, they wanted for no food or anything else. It was a gift of love. Outside the Garden of Eden, they had to go out there and start raising food and gathering food and competing for food. And they had other issues. Isn't that a little bit similar to the circumstances for those in the republic and those in the democracy? Let me ask you a question. And we don't know. Somebody said, hey, man, you go to the DTC with an SS card and you got 3.5B currency. Is that inside the Garden of Eden as far as your life is concerned? Do you have to work a harsh job in order to use that currency? Did you deserve that currency, or is it there out of love? As opposed to, I got to bust my balls out here in the democracy, and it's getting tougher every day. And jobs are defined as just outside bankruptcy. You're just getting enough to barely survive. And it's probably going to get even worse. Aren't you seeing the commonality of everything that exists in this world today to that which our Creator provided for us and wanted us to have under love? But if we don't have the right mental relationship between us and our Creator, haven't we separated ourselves from Him and not the other way around? But even so, in His love, He still provides. And so the health care bill is out there, and they had to get legal title over your body. To do what? To control you. And why do they want to control you? Because the health care bill put a lien on everyone. It's a commercial lien. And when you have a commercial lien on property, who holds the lien? The creditor. Is the corporate United States the creditor now on every U.S. 14th Amendment citizen? Is your public trust the 14th Amendment citizen? Yes. Box 6B is the U.S. citizen. Is that you? It depends on, in your mind, who you think you are. If you think you are me, box 6B, you are the U.S. citizen. Didn't Gordon yesterday say to you, I carry around all kinds of documents in behalf of my straw man because he needs those documents and he is so inept, he's going to screw them up, so I keep them in my wallet for him. They're not your documents if you are I or if you are myself. They are the documents belonging to me. And why are we suggesting strongly that a properly filed UCC1 is necessary? So that in the public sector, we've got evidence of the public records differentiating between me and myself. Because myself is the creditor and me is the debtor. And if they allow that record to get filed, then out of their own records, we've shown that there's two separate legal entities. But colorably, we got to just keep zipped about that because we can't go down into the democracy and start telling those people. The reason that I can talk to you today is, don't I have an unalienable right, unalienable, not lienable, that privately I can share my ideas with you in your private capacity? But if we go outside this room and we're surrounded by a lot of public, it is dishonor for us to speak these private concepts in front of the public, because the public are slaves to another master. And in honor, we do not have a right to go out and induce those slaves to rebel against their masters. If their slaves come to us not as slaves, but as I or myself, privately as people, wanting to learn what is going on, we have a right privately to discuss these matters with them. You see why we are a private meeting? We want to be in honor with our brothers. If the health care bill got a security interest, a lien against all of our bodies, why does President Obama, he is the commander-in-chief, the top military general, and so our nation has a president which is the military leading our democracy. And the president does not need Congress to pass any bills. He can dictate whatever he wants. That's what happens with generals in the military. And so he's been dictating long enough to Congress, look, you just do this or I'll bring it in. And they want the semblance as though you are still a representative government so that the sheeple, the slaves down there in the democracy, won't get too agitated and wake up. And so with this massive change going on in politics, they're walking a very thin line between getting done what is necessary to get done in an emergency in order to protect the democracy without overextending it to the position where the sheeple rebel, leading to anarchy, where the government has to come in and do actually collateral damage in order to protect them. Isn't that straight out of The Watchmen from last year? We got to kill people in order to save people. That's the tightrope they're walking. So the national government's got to lean on all the bodies. Go back to Genesis 14, and you'll find a story of the first international tax protesters. There were some debtor nations that in the 7th year decided not to pay their taxes. Guess they were the first patriots, huh? We don't want to pay our stinking taxes. It's illegal, unlawful, unconstitutional. Well, we already show, what is the taxes from IRS? They're just moving the collection of debts from the debtors to the creditors. What's unconstitutional in commerce about people who have contracted to pay a debt, paying their debts? Is there anything in the Constitution that says that debtors don't have to pay their debts? No. They called it a tax. In reality, they're just bill collectors. Is there anything in the Constitution that prevents bill collectors from operating? No. So it's not unconstitutional. It's outside the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't talk about debt collectors. It's part of commerce. It's been here forever. It's true that the taxes that IRS are basically collecting are not the constitutionally founded tax system in the Constitution. But who did the provisions of the Constitution apply to? The sovereign states in the Republic. How many people you know today are operating in the Republic? I don't think the constitutional taxes are bringing in much of anything. But debt collection for contractees in the democracy are moving a hell of a lot of funds, aren't they? They're outside the Constitution because what Congress does in the 10 square miles, the territories, the outlying possessions, and all of the people registered in the 10 square miles is Congress's business, which is not covered within the concept of the Constitution. And Congress is not limited by the limitations in the Constitution where Congress cannot go into the 50 states. Congress is not going into any of the 50 states. If they're coming after your public trust is held, used to be by the Department of Commerce. Last time I knew it was probably in one of the federal territories, wasn't it? Social Security was out of Puerto Rico with a treaty with England, wasn't it? Last time I knew, Puerto Rico wasn't one of the 50 states. So if Social Security was managed by a treaty out of there, isn't that within the jurisdiction of the authority of the District of Columbia, 10 miles square, and its outlying possessions? And if you're in a contract under Social Security, aren't you bound by the geographical location and the law of that location, dealing with that contract, which is clearly within the boundary of Congress under powers that are not covered by any restrictions in the Constitution? Isn't that true? So you want to tell me where anything the national government has been doing is unconstitutional, illegal, or any other thing, that all these radical, crazy patriots are in a warfare fighting facts and allegations against the government? See, stinking thinking, unable to see the big picture, false assumptions. Bring all of these arguments down, which the court has keep going saying, frivolous, 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 frivolous. Well, why? We're military government, can't tell you, can't tell you, can't tell you. Stop arguing. Our president needed a lien on your body to keep the foreign creditor nations from executing on the debt. You don't get paid, what does the creditor do? Garnish, levy, Genesis 14, levy. Some people in this room may be very used to the fact that IRS doesn't get paid. They don't go to court. They have got a notice of a lien. They levy. It's execution. It's not unconstitutional. That's what creditors do when debtors don't pay debts. Are we concerned about China levying the United States? Would that be called invasion? Would that be called war? If China's coming over here to get assurances to pay their debt, if we default, which is very likely, what would they levy? Would they seize the money? What is the money? Bodies. You want to start digging ditches in China? Go back to Genesis 14. In Genesis 14, who saved the people from levy? Abram. Was Abram not a metaphor for Christ? The one who came to save us from a debt? Who did Abram go out to save? His nephew. Why did Abram feel that he had to go out and save his nephew Lot? Because his nephew Lot and his family lived in the city which was being levied, but was not a citizen of the city. What's that got to do with it? Well, when they come to America to levy after the debt has been defaulted, what is liable legally and lawfully to be levied? The possessions and property belonging to the corporate United States. They're the ones that's in a debt. Can they levy the assets of the republic? No. It's a different country. You might want to consider moving your res from the democracy to the republic before the end of 3 years. Just an idea. Not talking about how we do it right now. We're in stage 1 and 2, not in stage 3. Why did Obama need this? Wasn't he supposed to go to Asia on an important meeting? Didn't he put off that visit? Why did he put that visit off? Because the health care bill wasn't passed, and he stayed here to see the health care bill passed. If it had been passed, what was he going to take with him to Asia? The bill? The bill did what? Put a lien on people. Okay, let's look at it this way. Party A owes Party B some money, who owes Party C some money. Okay, so Party A gets a lien against Party B, but Party A also then owes money to C. Can't Party A assign part of his security lien to Party C to set off that obligation? So what had to happen was Party A, President Obama, had to get a lien on Party B, citizens of the United States, to go to Party C, creditors in Asia. And if he had the recorded lien on Party B, citizens of the United States, he could then pledge all or part of that lien to Party C, China, to give China assurances that they're going to get paid because they have a recorded lien. Oh, what the hell's that got to do with anything? Don't you remember when we were discussing that money chart yesterday? Didn't we say the bank gets a recorded mortgage or trust deed on your land? Yippee! Oh, no, I want to get rid of that. Oh, well, here's your options. If you get rid of it, you got to pay the bank cash right now. Well, I ain't got the cash. Well, if you get rid of it then, by giving them the second note, and it's a liability note, not an asset note, then there's no recorded lien on the land. Well, I don't care, that's good. No, that's bad. Because what has the creditor got to do now? He's got to take physical possession to assure his debt. What did Obama do? China has to take physical possession of the collateral to assure its debt, unless you give them a recorded lien. The recorded lien is the health care bill, which puts a lien on every man, woman, and child in America, thus averting for the time being World War III. China can stay home, our sheeple can stay asleep, everybody's happy. Oh, wait a minute, hold it. We got a recorded lien. Oh, we got to make monthly payments. If we don't make monthly payments, then the recorded lien does no good, and then we go back to plan B. We got to come in and take physical possession. Isn't that what a foreclosure is? So didn't change become the mantra of the last election? And wasn't both candidates telling you there's going to be change? And what was Obama suggesting strongly? There was going to be a mass shift in wealth. Oh, really? Where is it going to go? Oh, well, there's a lot of people that had a lot of ideas that things were going to come my way. Have they come that way? No. Where does wealth always shift? Debtors to creditors. With every man, woman, and child in America having a lien on them, we've now got a mortgage that's got to get paid. When you have a new mortgage, what happens to your standard of living? Is that what Obama told you was going to happen? Didn't he say to you in the election, America's eating steak and driving SUVs. The rest of the world is eating mud, and they got broken down, dying horses. Something's got to change. What was he suggesting? That the rest of the world was going to eat steak and drive SUVs? What kind of message were you getting? With regard to taxes, which is what's going to get collected from the debtors to pay the new mortgage on the lien, is the suggestion that taxes are going up or going down? Going up. So your standard of living is going to change. Oh, we're spending way too many resources in the healthcare field keeping the bodies healthy. The real problem with the bodies are debt. If we don't deal with the debt, whether you have an appendicitis attack or not is immaterial. So we're going to lower your health in order to free up funds to discharge the debt on the new mortgage. So therefore, health care is death care. Has the government been telling you the truth colorably? For those with eyes to see, ears to hear. Have they been telling you the truth in black and white? No. You people are captives in a military society. We cannot tell you the truth in black and white. Now you know the rest of the story. For those of you that are going to remain in the democracy, this is probably not good. For those of you that are going to think of moving to the republic, it's probably a good time to get serious. Where do we want to go, my friend? Do we want to put them on break?
We're going to have a break here in a moment. And when we come back from break, we're going to discuss some extreme optimism and why things are really good.
Oh, we want to be happy.
Because in the bottom line of it all is, it's important for you all to understand, from my point of view, exactly what's going on in the concept that a democracy or de facto government is simply what? Existing in fact, but not legally established. The government has no authority over you but what you don't consent. Today, tomorrow, 2013, 2015, they've not been imbued with any authority other than what you allow. You know, there's a famous court case, Cohens versus Virginia, and it's in Cooperative Federalism, it's quoted, but it's Cohens versus Virginia. And it is said thusly by the Supreme Court. It begins, it is clear. Now, when they say the word clear, they mean it. It is clear that Congress, as a legislative body, exercise two species of legislative power. The one limited as to its objects, but extending all over the Union. The other, an absolute exclusive legislative power over the District of Columbia.
My friend, isn't the first the republic and the second the democracy?
There it is.
So if they cannot restrict things on us in the republic, wouldn't that be a great place to be?
Totally. So what I'm telling you, what Jack is telling you, contrary to this democracy that's pervasive throughout the land, is just fine. You're in the republic sitting right here, and that person can be sitting right there in the democracy, and at any time you want to go in and out of that, believe it or not, contracts are dynamic. And we're going to teach you a little. This power of contracting is unique. Now, there's going to be a couple overriding doctrines that rule and control. And one of those doctrines, based on public policy, is going to be the assent policy, which you're going to love. And the other one that is huge is reliance, or reasonable expectations. Because I, as the other side of that contracting party or a government, when you act a certain way, I have the right to rely on or have my reasonable expectations protected. And those come from your conduct, acts, and actions. And whether I'm carrying around a bunch of Gordon Hall's identification and his credit cards and his driver's license has got nothing to do with it. If I get stopped at customs, maybe coming in, and I've yet to come with how I want to deal with that, but whether I'm going to allow customs to do as he did to one of our friends here, copy her computer codes and made paperwork, they don't have any authority to do that. And I believe the comment was, are you refusing to cooperate? What was it? They asked, are you refusing to give me your Social Security number? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, I don't care what this democracy does. I do care, because I don't want to trespass on them. They have every right to be who they are. But you also have every right to be who you are, and have faith and optimism in Almighty God, because it never is better than it is today. And you will learn very simply, are you refusing to disclose your Social Security number? Are you suggesting that you can compel me to disclose the Social Security number by denying me, pursuant to Title 552A, any federal, state, etc. agency that denies anyone any right, privilege, or benefit on account of his failure to disclose his Social Security number shall be guilty of a felony in violation of United States laws. You can't get the Social Security number out of me, and you cannot deny me.
Hang on 1 second, Gordon.
What?
Let me jump in. Remember on our commercial chart, we said that there was an account in the DTC, right?
Okay.
The Social Security number is the entrance to that account from the democracy.
Okay.
The red number on the back is the entrance to that account from the republic.
Okay.
The account number in the Social Security card is a tool, like
Okay.
our friend Brandon was saying yesterday. Is the Social Security number good or is it bad?
Just an event, it's a number.
It's an event. And I agree with everything Gordon is saying. And if you did what Gordon said, would you be demonstrating to the officer that was doing his job that you were from the republic or from the democracy? From the republic. Is that good or is that bad? It's neither. It's an event. But you would be demonstrating which one of the two countries you're in, because the Social Security number is only a tool, and it is good from the republic as it is from the democracy.
So
We
what
have 5 minutes.
So what I want you to understand is you have rights, whether you were in prison, whether you're at a customs place, whether a policeman pulls you over, whether you're at a store, a post office, at a restaurant, and somebody's questioning you. I'm going to tell you, it doesn't get more fun and more animating than it's going to get in this future. This is going to be you've got to come from a position of fun. And the stories are to let you know that they can't do what they want with you. When Diane was asked, are you refusing to disclose the Social Security number or your Social Security number? The question is, why do you want it? And do you think you can compel me to disclose it in violation of Title 552A, which states in pertinent part, any federal state that denies anybody any right, privilege, or benefit, as in traveling, by offenders, is guilty of violating United States laws and potential felony. And that major retailer I worked with that didn't want to cash a $186.40 check in exchange for a $186 check because I would not disclose a Social Security number, found themselves at the end of a hello, how are you, that was very expensive. And they quickly settled the matter within 10 days. Why? And I can tell you, if a customs guy or a policeman or a police station wants the Social Security number to Gordon Hall, he's asking the wrong person. He's got to talk to Gordon Hall. And like one of our students in court said, when the judge says, well, I need to ask the defendant some questions. And our student so eloquently put it, I'd like to know how you're going to ask a dead corporate entity anything. Which stumped the judge. You remember, you know who I'm talking about. She's a sweetheart. Just a star. You know, you get yourself into the game and you just learn to be a little conversational. And I know that it's fearful. And when Diane this morning says, hey, I don't want to be detained the whole day. Well, on what basis would you like to be detained? How much would you like for being detained the whole day? Starting with a first-class plane ticket and probably 10 grand. And I don't know, what's it worth? There's going to be a nice number. Do I want the guard to take my private chess set? Absolutely I do. It's 40 grand. Take them all. Take everything I got. That's 40, that's 20, that's 60. Pay. It's a beautiful world. I love contracts. And have optimism and upbeatness, because I'm going to tell you, Congress exercises two species of lawmaking power. One, they could do whatever they want in D.C., and they passed the Patriot II Act, the health care bill. They passed all that for D.C., and its objects are spreading all over the land. But they didn't pass it in my country, their nation. See, because even Supreme Court says, beautiful stuff. By metaphysical refinement, it might be correctly said that there is no such thing as a citizen of the United States. Supreme Court said there's no such thing. Cooperative federalism, it's in there also. You're going to love it. And it goes on to talk about. So we're going to take a break here. I want you to go on break, be upbeat. We're going to come back and hit some